All right, 93. 93, 93. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. You already know how we coming. And I already got it rolled up. What's up, Natasha? All right. So we're going to open up those gateways. We're going to open up those doors as usual. And we're going to bring you a perspective that nobody else really can bring you. Unless they really with the shit, right? And people that's really with the shit, they ain't really doing too much talking, right? So that's the whole thing, right? Most of this stuff goes unnoticed because the people that know ain't really revealing this shit as they should, right? As they should. Because when certain information is available to the masses who are untrained, all they do is create problems for themselves and everybody else. That's why the occult is the occult. Because if you mishandle this shit, you can really cause some damage. More so to yourself, but it will bleed off into other people in other dimensions. But that's really the catch-22. The catch-22 is the spirits be hungry and they have to feed. So why not trick people out their position? Because we know the currency of the streets is blood, right? So the streets is gonna eat regardless, as we know, right? The streets will eat. You just basically navigate in a way that it's not you. I understand this because the same shit is happening at my job. What do I mean by that? Last week, because today is Sunday now. So the 29th week of the year, because I keep in track, right? Last week was the 29th week, so now we are in the 30th week out of the 52. And last week was probably one of the toughest weeks, meaning people having accidents, shit getting fucked up, right? Basically machinery. Anybody who's operating machinery was getting hurt, right? People twisting their ankles and shit. You know what I mean? People making real strange mistakes. And of course, you know, me being into the numbers, I'm looking at it like the 29th week. The number 9 is Mars. That takes us directly to the Tower card. Number 2 is the Moon. It takes us directly to the High Priestess or the Priestess, right? So the 29th week represents the Priestess of the Tower, which is the Priestess of Destruction, or as we call Underworld goddesses. Last week was the energy of an Underworld goddess or a Qliphothic spirit. We'd say it that way, right? The Tree of Death, the Qliphoth, Underworld, all the same thing, right? This is the necessary evil of the world, meaning gangsters have to exist, male and female. Same thing with capitalism. These so-called dirty businessmen or dirty businesswomen, they have to exist. These are not people or energies or spirits that just are like defying the law somehow. They are meant to be here on planet Earth to cause chaos, as we call the agents of chaos. Agents of chaos are absolutely necessary. Why are they necessary? Because otherwise we would get too bored. We would get too bored. Life would be too boring if shit wasn't fucked up. It's just the reality of it. What would be life without motherfuckers getting slain in the streets? I know it sounds harsh, but what would the news even talk about? Every time a body drop, it's on the news. Every time somebody do some dumbass shit, it's on the news. The news is always showing you the worst of human nature. So imagine if we didn't see that. What type of stories would they put out? Would they put out stories of positivity? No, they wouldn't. Right? What's up, Dank Wizard? They definitely would not put out stories of positivity, even if that's the only stories that they can make. Why? Because their bottom line is about destruction. It's about chaos. The news wants world to seem like a very dangerous place. I'm not saying it's not. It's only if you don't know better. It's only if you don't know better. If you don't know how to navigate these streets, you will be a victim of these streets. And the streets will not give a fuck. Will snatch your motherfucking ass up and not think twice about it. Because as they say, the streets love nobody. Meaning your ass can get it too. If you're out of pocket, if you're out of line, if you're not moving with the currency, you will get the fuck up out of here. So we will go deeper into these things. I'm just giving y'all a quick introduction. Y'all see the smoke. Got the incense already going. I'm just giving y'all a little primer right now. So I'm gonna light this up. You see, I ain't even got on the. I gotta get into the spirit and shit. I ain't even in the spirit, but you know. Oh, we can get this shit in instantaneously, right? Let's do that instantaneous shit. All right, let's do that instantaneous shit. All right, let's go into it. And again, don't try this at home, kids. This is very dangerous work if you are not qualified. All right. That's why I dedicated this channel to show you exactly what it takes to be qualified, right? And you see it wasn't nothing easy about this shit, right? That was my point. My point of making this channel is nothing easy about what this is, what we do here, right? There's nothing nice about 93. It's nothing that should be played with because it will play with your ass right back, right? It will play with your ass right back. It will give you the energy that you give it. But we should know this, right? Because a lot of us are from the streets, but I'm going to tell you things that even you don't know. Why? Because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm not supposed to just tell you things you already know. I should take it a step further, right? So we know who's real and who's not, right? Everybody got information. Now we're going beyond information. We're going beyond knowledge, right? Because anybody can get information, anybody can get knowledge, but everybody can't get the understanding. Everybody can't be a master of their craft. They can be, but it's a certain level of dedication that's required, which everybody doesn't have. Why? Because they're too concerned with money, you know, with the women, with the men, with the materialism, right? That's why, you know, everybody's always flashing money, showing this, showing that, right? I ain't saying nothing wrong with it, right? It all depends on what energy you want around you. You do whatever the fuck you want to do. Do what thou wilt is the theme here, right? Do whatever the fuck you want to do. But if you're really trying to be successful, if you're trying to win at this shit, then you have to follow certain parameters. And we will go through those parameters and we will, you know, hopefully it makes a lot more sense. Again, nobody else is going to tell you this shit, right? Because they're not supposed to. That's why I have to honor the position I'm in. I'm covering the mic? Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I am covering the mic. All right, hopefully that's better. Hopefully that's better. Sorry about that. You see, I'm just putting shit on, right? Just getting ready as we're talking here, right? So y'all let me know, is that better? Okay, apologize for that, I literally just threw the do-rag on, right? But let's get into it, right? Let's open up the gateways, let's open up the doors so I can reveal things that I probably shouldn't be telling you anyway. But I'm gonna tell you because I have your best interests at heart. That's the only reason I reveal things I probably shouldn't reveal, right? Put my whole life on the line. But that's just the type of shit we do here, right? We're not motivated by fear. I want to see you successful. Every time I see somebody that looks like me that's doing well, it makes me feel good. I don't like to see fucked up shit. I don't like to see boring shit. I don't like to see broke shit, especially from people that look like me, right? So I'm gonna dedicate my whole life to this shit. Make sure everybody's pimpish. Making sure everybody on player time. Making sure whatever your lifestyle is, just be the best at it. Whatever type of time you want, right? Be the best husband, be the best wife, be the best boyfriend, girlfriend, or be the best player, pimp, hoe, 304, scarlet woman, whatever you're into, just be the best at it. That's why I recommend do what nobody else can do. Because in order to be the best, that means you do something better than everybody else. Well, it's a very competitive world out here, right? So it's hard to be the best in a very competitive world unless you do some very extracurriculum strange shit, right? Meaning you have to find your own niche. If you find your own niche, then it ain't really gonna be too many people that do that better than you, right? What's up, Finesse? I see the drip has been enhanced. You crazy, man. You crazy, man. I just understand the world, man. I just understand the world. Motherfuckers are worldly, right? We are human beings. We like nice shit. So for me to come before you and try to play that shit off like that's not in us, it wouldn't be right, right? We all like looking fly. You know, if you playerish, if you pimpish, if you the scarlet woman, you like that fly shit, right? It's already in you. It's already in you, right? So it's a matter of how you want to bring it out. How do you bring out what's already within you and add that level of finesse, right? So that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing, all right? That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. We've been doing this shit, right? We do this shit all day. Rappers is flashing jewelry, watches. We do what we do, right? I ain't tripping on it. Whatever makes you happy, you do it, right? But this is an element of hip hop. So let me stop bullshitting. This is an element of hip hop. It's called street fashion, right? There are 9 elements of hip hop. One of the elements is street fashion. So we're gonna take it straight to hip hop. So I'm just embracing an element of hip hop. You gotta be fashionable. You got to, right? There's really no way around it. So even though I'm saying it's human nature, but that's why it's an element of hip hop. You have to have your fashion on point. You got to, all right? I mean, and I be looking. This is where I be looking like this at work. You know what I mean? So I don't just put this shit on for the camera. This is how I look at work. I just have the actual do rag on, right? I don't just lay it. This is the same way y'all be seeing me here. I look like this at work. I just have a fucking polo on. I don't have the tank top on. I put a fucking polo on, right? I should put one on right now, right? Just so motherfuckers don't think I'm on break, I'm casual. Yes, this is a day off, but you see, even on my days off, I still put that work in. I got the green screen over there, cause I told y'all, right, I'm gonna be behind the green screen. I got the light, I got the tripod. That's why I'm not holding the camera, right? So I got the tripod, I got the light. That's why it's more light. So I got the light behind me, but I also got light in front of me. Got the green screen over there, got the camera set up. You know what I mean? So because before I was just working overtime, right? So if I was off, I'm just working overtime. Like I was telling y'all before, I'm working the 50 hours, 60 hours. Now, I'm like, I don't really feel the need to neglect the creativity any longer. Because I kind of been putting y'all off. I've been putting the YouTube off, just stacking up the bread, right? Overtime after overtime after overtime. Even next week is a full week of fucking overtime. Mandatory overtime. You didn't even have a choice about it, right? So I'm like, my creativity is necessary, right? You know what I mean? I gotta keep doing the music and shit. I gotta still do the ASMR. I gotta still make this shit happen for y'all, all right? All right? I'm not about to put y'all on the back burner because I'm chasing paper. I know that's what everybody else would do, but that's the exact reason why I don't do it, because that's exactly what everybody else like. Fuck, I ain't about to do this shit. You know what I mean? They try to feed their family and shit, right? We always say, I'm trying to feed my family. Well, that's why I'm here, right? To do what everybody else have an excuse for. Everybody else got a fucking excuse, but not me. Y'all see, I keep showing up. Where's my excuses? I was showing up before this, right? So that's why, like, this shit don't really matter to me. I was showing up before the do-rags, before the shades, before the jewelry, when I had nothing, right? I was still showing up when I had nothing. No money in my pocket, still showing up. So that's why now, this shit don't mean nothing to me. It means something to the world. It don't mean nothing to me, because I was still making it happen before all this, right? But that's why I wanted to show y'all that. I wanted to show y'all me before the top shit, right? Because y'all gonna see I'm the same way. Y'all gonna say, like, all right, so what? I'm adorned, but y'all still know who I am in my heart. Y'all don't give a fuck about this. Like, I don't give a fuck about this, right? Because y'all know what's been going on for the last 10 years, right? Y'all know the sacrifice at play. So now this is just like whatever, man. Like, yeah, after 10 years of fucking sacrifice, you might as well fucking adorn yourself, right? You might as well. You didn't earn it at that point, right? But anyway, enough about me and whatever the fuck I got going on. This is not about me. Let's talk about some real interesting activities. So I'm lighting up right now, right? Well, let me remove my ego out of the picture. So fuck me and my little bitty ego and whatever the fuck I got going on. Let's talk about why we're here, all right? So I'm about to shut my ego off and I'm gonna let the spirit take over. All right, so I'm just lighting up the joint, which is mixed, all right? I got all type of shit in here, right? So this is not just weed. It's all type of shit in here, all right? This Scorpio shit, you know, psychedelics, psychedelics. That's what we're doing. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, all right? This is not just a fucking joint with weed. This is psychedelics. So I'm like, instead of me doing it recreationally like everybody else, let me be constructive about my psychedelics and let me reveal what would be useful. So let me use my psychedelic activities to be useful and constructive. Why? Because most people are just trying to have a good trip. They not about getting the game. That's what we about though. We about getting the game. Fuck doing anything recreationally. Motherfuckers smoking weed and shit recreationally. Do you know how much game you can have if you do this shit properly? But that's why I have to show you how to do this shit. Do this shit properly. You know how much game you have? You know how different life will be? But again, fuck what I'm saying. You just have to, you will see me. So y'all see me. I'm putting shit together piece by piece, right? So watch the end result. So like right now, it ain't about nothing because I'm doing it piece by piece. But when you see the end result, you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. But I suggest everybody do the same for themselves. Adorn yourself. If you see yourself as a king, if you see yourself as a queen, adorn yourself. Not for nobody else. You adorn yourself for you. Again, as you see, I don't do this for opinion. I don't do this because of what I think people's opinion will be, right? I got on Medusas because I am Medusa. It's just that simple. I got on Medusas because I see myself as Medusa. That's all it is. I just see myself as Medusa, right? I got the Medusa head because we are Medusa. We are the cursed people, but we reverse the curse, right? Some people feel they cursed just to have black skin. Why? Because that's why so many of our people be doing the shit they do, right? That's why I'm saying, like, I had to go into the streets to know this shit. I don't just know this shit. Most of what I know, I had to learn on my own. I had to go and get the information, right? Fuck a book. I had to go see the state of my people in direct first person. That's why I had to go into the streets. I needed to learn what the fuck is really going on with my people, right? But in order to do that, you had to become that. Meaning, when I was in the streets, I had to become the streets. And it's not until you get out of the streets that you realize, like, damn, I'm still the same way. You don't just change overnight. It's a process. So that's why we bring forth Medusa, right? So of course, I'm like, if I'm gonna adorn myself, let me adorn myself with some Qliphothic energy. So I'm like, Medusa, perfect. So that's why I do what I do. So everything is symbolic. Some people just wear shit just to wear it, just because they think it look cool, right? They don't understand the magic of these symbols and the type of energy it brings out of you. What I mean by that is, I see why a lot of people get hated on when they wear designer clothing or accessories or whatever it may be. It's because the type of shit that it brings out of you is ugly, but you already was ugly, right? What's up, Ashe? Peace and love. What I mean by that is, if you already an ugly motherfucker spiritually, then when you get some money, that's just gonna make you more of what you already are. It's not gonna make you different. See, nobody switches up. People just become what they are, right? Nobody switches up. People just become what they are. So that's why when you see people become successful, they didn't change. They just became who they really was. But again, who gives a fuck? That's my mentality. Who gives a fuck? I'm not the person looking at what everybody else is doing anyway. I have no idea what anybody else is doing in their life. That's just the type of person I am, right? I try to come to y'all in peace, not with a bunch of madness and chaos and all that. It's just because I'm not involved in people's life. I don't know nobody's personal information. I don't even really know my family's information like that. I don't know what goes on in their households, and I don't want to know what goes on. Right? It's not my motherfucking business. Right? I really don't care. So I do. Just putting a little Vaseline on my lips. You know, when you smoke, be having your lips looking crazy as fuck, right? So got everything within arm's reach. But anyway, the point of me making the video is I feel we all come from the underworld. If you watch me, you must, there's something about you that's underworld. Again, you may not necessarily have come from a broken home, but you have been exposed to Qliphothic energy in some form or fashion. Because I don't think you would even find me interesting or even give a fuck about what I got to say if you didn't resonate with that. I was about to use metaphors y'all probably don't understand. But I know some people do understand. The shards of the soul edge, for those people who know about Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur is a video game for PlayStation. It's a fighting game like Mortal Kombat, right? One of the weapons in Soul Calibur is called Soul Edge. It's a sword with an eye, right? It's basically a living sword. It's like a demon sword, right? It has a whole face and all type of shit, right? So basically, whoever wields Soul Edge, you basically have to do the deeds. You have to essentially take on the will of Soul's Edge, just like people take on the will of a law, right? Nightmare's signature weapon. Oh, exactly, right? The reason why his name is Nightmare is because he is the host of Soul Edge, right? We know Siegfried becomes Nightmare. But the metaphor I'm using here is more about Soul Edge. Basically, if you were the wielder of Soul Edge, I don't even think this was mentioned in the game. But I would, I'd be doing the back research to the game. So this is how I found out. So I don't even think they even mentioned this part in the actual game. But basically, if you wield Soul Edge, you are able to control people who have the shards of Soul Edge in them. So basically, it's certain people who have shards of Soul Edge. Soul Edge was scattered into a bunch of shards that went into people, right? So whenever Soul Edge is within the vicinity of one of the shards, It magnetizes the influence, essentially, right? This is why I'm using Soul Edge as an example, because this is exactly how the law works. These games don't just be making up these things. These things are based on stories that's older than we can even go back. And it's the principles contained within the stories that remain consistent. These are the things that we say don't change. The law doesn't change. Not the man law, the universal law. It don't change. Laws of the land change every day, but the universal laws are consistent. The occult is consistent. The tarot is consistent. Astrology is consistent, right? It's consistency that we're looking for, right? When we think about the idea of success, that is consistency. When we think about an idea of a successful anything, a successful relationship, a successful business, the core of that success is consistency. People wake up every day and decide to be a husband, decide to be a wife, decide to shop with you, decide to spend their money with you. That means people are consistently making a decision to spend money with you. That's what success is, right? On a major scale, people are consistently spending money. Basically, people have subscriptions. People are basically dedicating a certain amount of their check to you. You're going to get a certain amount of that check, right? Whether it's $1, $5, $10, $100, whatever the amount is, right? But that's essentially guaranteed to you. Basically, this is what we do. Like, you have a certain part of your check goes to Netflix. If you have a Netflix subscription or Hulu, Amazon, whatever your streaming service is, it's a certain amount of money that's allocated to that service every month consistently, right? Same thing with the car note. If you have a car note, same thing with insurance, same thing with rent, same thing with mortgage. It's about consistency, right? Because if you fail to be consistent, then now you have problems. If you fail to be consistent in paying your rent or mortgage, now you put yourself in a situation where you can be put out of your home. If you fail to be consistent with the car note, now you put yourself in a position where you can get your car repossessed. So you essentially, same thing with relationship. When you start being consistent in the relationship, now the relationship is on the path of failure. So we see, when we understand the things that are consistent first, when we understand consistency first, all the things that change, which is the world of materialism, is all always changing things every day, right? Every day, every hour, every minute, every second, something is changing. So some people can't really get a grasp of life because it's very changeable. The whole purpose of life is to find consistency and changeability. We are trying to find consistency in a changeable world. That's what a career is. A career is you are doing something consistently while the company changes. Basically, if you are a manager of a company, if you are somebody who oversees the technicalities, the company is going to go through several changes because there are many different plays set in motion, by the people that invest the money to make everything work. So they're implementing different plays, and that requires new people to be hired, that requires some people to be fired, that requires certain skill sets. All these things are swift and changeable. If you have been a part of any company or corporation for a long time, you know this to be true. How many people have you seen come and go? How many changes have you seen been put in place in policy? We see these things all the time. If you are consistently apart, you see changes. However, the consistency is the paycheck. The consistency is the amount of money that people are spending with the corporation or company that you are a part of. People are consistently spending money, meaning these are things that people need in some form or fashion. They need that. People need entertainment, right? So even entertainment is a need. Entertainment is the fifth house. The fifth house of the zodiac, Leo, is all about theater and entertainment. So that is a necessary part of life. So are willing to pay for entertainment, right? And along with the other 11 houses, these are things that we need. So when you are able to supply essentially one of the 12 houses, and that everybody has a certain house that they specialize in, most of the time that's consistent with your sun sign, right? As we know, each of the sun signs are connected to a particular house. So if you are a Leo, you're probably strong in the fifth house. If you're a Scorpio, you're probably strong in the eighth house. If you're Aries, you're probably strong in the first house. So on and so forth, right? Not to say that that's the end all, that's a rule, because astrology is very creative. Again, that's the difference between numerology and astrology. Astrology is creative. So even though I just said that, that doesn't necessarily make it the absolute rule that everybody has to follow. There's many different paths. That's why it's good to learn numerology first, because numerology is all about the consistency of the numbers. Meaning you just become familiar with the consistencies of the numbers. What that means is you can notice what numbers are around you because of the consistency of the qualities. So you can notice, oh, this person is a number one. That person is a number seven. That person is a number five. This is a number seven energy. This is a number eight energy. You can identify that because you understand the consistency of the numbers, which are just the qualities of the planets. The qualities of the planets give you certain definitions or keywords that just get you familiar with the consistency. So the definition is not the end all be all. It's just to get you familiar with the consistency. And once you are familiar with the consistency, you can notice that energy in your reality. So once you are familiar with the consistency of the number six, for example, and you know that six corresponds with Venus, and you know Venus holds certain qualities, and you would know if you are in a Venus environment because you are familiar with the consistency of the frequency of Venus. Then you take it to the tarot, which becomes the Empress. Then you take it to the Hebrew, which becomes the Hebrew letter Daleth, which represents the door. Why does the Empress or Daleth represents the door? What the fuck? You see, these, we just ask ourselves harder questions as we advance in the occult. It's just a harder question that's posed on you. Numerology is definite. You're just there learning consistencies. Then astrology, then you see is there's many different ways to arrive at an answer. So astrology gives you a lot of room to work with. So things are not as strict. So as you advance, things get more creative. Then the tarot gets even more creative. Then the Kabbalah gets even more creative. So the point of us advancing in these degrees, this is how you become more creative, period. Right? What's up, Montu 93? And I appreciate the work you continue to put in as well. You know, I always show respect. Exactly. You know, I see the work that you're putting in. You put it in, you know. So I'm just connecting the dots with consistency. As we advance in the occult, it's about becoming more creative. So once you get to the level of the Kabbalah, now you understand the workings of the universe. And now you can set up your own plays. I'm just putting this in the modern language so that we can understand what are we really doing here? What is the purpose of knowing this stuff? You're just knowing it to knowing it. Like, how does this affect your actual reality? I'm just showing you the parallels. So as you advance in your degrees, you're seeing how this allows you to have a more creative hold over life. Because we know life is all about creativity. The most creative person is always going to be the one to win. It's not the most necessarily, you can say, left-brained person, the scientist or the mathematician, the one who understands the technicalities. Why? Because the scientist, you can say, is stuck in the laboratory or stuck in the field. They're completely involved in their world of understanding, whatever that world may be. They're not necessarily worried about what you got going on or what's going on in the spirit. Astrology, the numerology, that's not their world of focus. They don't care nothing about that. So it's the creative person who's able to actually embrace both worlds. So you're not neglecting the science, you're not neglecting the mathematics. You understand why astrology is as mathematical as it is because you understand numerology. So you understand the degrees. Astrology is just all about 30 degrees. It's not 1 to 30 because some people still do that to this day. To this day, it's still, people look at the degrees as 1 through 30. To this day, people are not acknowledging zero. It's actually 0 to 29. It's not 1 to 30, it's 0 to 29. 0 to 29. Just like the tarot is 0 to 21. It's not 1 to 22. It's 0 to 21. Older tarot decks, like from the Middle Ages to medieval times, you would see tarot decks from 1 to 22. That's originally how it was with the Roman numerals. As we know, the tarot uses Roman numerals, right? There's a reason why it uses Roman numerals, but 0 is not a Roman numeral. This is the change that was made. 0 is not a Roman numeral. So why is 0 amongst Roman numerals, which originally was 1 to 22? They felt 0 was that important that they put the 0 in there. And it's not a Roman numeral. As we know, the 0 is Arabic, right? It's a Arabic numeral. And we talked about how influential the 0 is in mathematics. It allows us to advance mathematics. Astrology would not be possible without the 0. So without the 0, there would be no astrology, there would be no trigonometry, there would be no calculus. Things that require like decimals, 0 point this, 0.128 degrees and all that. None of that would be possible without the 0. The 0 allowed us to make more precise measurements all the way to the actual point. That's how we have GPS and coordinates. That's calculating your location to the precise degree. That requires the use of the number 0, which was introduced into the tarot because we had to acknowledge, okay, like this 0 is a problem. There was a time in the world where 0 was not acknowledged, essentially in Roman times. In Roman times, 0 was not acknowledged. Was it acknowledged in Kim? Yes, the 0 was acknowledged in Kim. That's why it was able to do advanced things. Everything we see about Kim lets you know about, okay, this requires you to understand 0. That's why it's so mysterious. Like, okay, when people say we don't understand how the ancient people did what they did, because they can't comprehend how the ancient man and the ancient woman had an understanding of the number 0. When they put Rome, you can say they put Rome on the highest pedestal. When you can say the scholars and the Westerners, when you think about Rome and you think about Caesar and all that, even to this day, you got Caesar's Palace right here in Las Vegas. Caesar's Palace is right there. So there are people in the mainstream, they put Rome on this pedestal. They done made movies about it. How many movies about Romans in Rome that they put that on a supreme pedestal? But you have to acknowledge, even what you put on a supreme pedestal did not acknowledge 0. So essentially, You could say Rome was the height of reality without zero. That's what Rome was. Meaning, if there was no zero, give me 1 second, man. Okay. If there was no zero, the apex, there's no higher than Rome. In a world with no zero, Rome is the apex. I'll give it that. Rome is the apex without zero. That's why the Roman numerals are on the tarot, because that was the world power. They put the Roman numerals there because that was the world power. That was the dominant power in the Middle Ages, right? That's the dominant power. Because when Rome fell, that's what created the Dark Ages. So we know this to be true because you can look at when Rome fell, it caused the Dark Ages. Meaning motherfuckers didn't know what the fuck to do at that point. We have just failed from grace. That's how people was feeling. We just felt from grace. We don't have the blessings of the gods anymore. People were shattered. Imagine the people Imagine the people that believe in God and then God just destroys your whole reality. You know how many people would just be at, like they wouldn't know what to do. They don't know what to believe. It would just destroy their whole faith. Not to say that everybody's faith would be destroyed, but a lot of people's faith would be destroyed. Just to give a parallel of how the people were feeling, because they believed, you can say, in multiple gods and goddesses. So it wasn't all on one energy. It was on multiple energies, right? So just to put that degree in there, so it was multiple energies that was focused on. But just imagine all of a sudden, the temple that you always went to worship, the God that you always not quoted, but mentioned in prayers over your foods and feasts and all that, you see those temples being destroyed. You seeing the priests flinging, you seeing the politics just being destroyed. You seeing everything that you always know be destroyed. You would be like, our gods are being overthrown. That's how you would feel like, yo, the God that gave us everything has now been overthrown by a more powerful God. And that's what happens when, Subtech Man's 93, that's what happens when one power shifts to another power, right? Every time we have a world power, we have a shift where gods fall, goddesses fall, and then others rise. That's the same thing what happened with the Titans versus the Olympians. The same thing that happened with Tiamat versus Marduk or Marduk. The same thing that happened with Horus and Set, right? We have this war of the old age versus the new age, the old way versus the new way. So best believe it was a war to put that zero into the tarot, meaning that zero had to show and prove its worth to the point where they said, okay, we got to acknowledge the zero. It had to show and prove its worth, and zero had the ability to show and prove its worth, right? So now that we understand the zero was placed into the tarot, which is Arabic. So now you have to mix the Arabic with the Roman energy, meaning now the energy has to be mixed. Now you can't just look at things from one perspective. Now you have to mix your perspectives the same way you have to mix the elements. See, most tarot readers don't mix the elements. Just think about it. Most tarot readers don't mix the elements. Why? Because when they do readings, the cards be separate. The cards be separate. Meaning, for example, one of the most popular readings is a Celtic cross reading, which is You can say a bunch of cards, like 10 cards placed in a cross-like direction, but the cards are all separated. Most readings or most spreads, like if you look up right now, go to Google right now and look up tarot spread. And majority of these tarot spreads will be some type of spread, but the cards are separate. Rarely, if ever, do you see the cards are all read as a sequence. The only place you really seen that was the Golden Dawn, and that's where Aleister Crowley comes from. So within the world of 93, within the reading of the tarot of 93, the cards are supposed to be read as a sequence, not as separate elements. So when you read the cards as a sequence and not separate elements, you have to acknowledge the elemental value that each card has. See, you don't have to acknowledge the elemental value. See, again, this is real alchemy. This is why they took away most of this. This is why most tarot readers is simple, because the real alchemical work that you're supposed to be putting in is really complex. You got to really be into the arts. You got to be a real artist. This is real art. When you put together these stories that you tell people that influence their lives. That's why I always take this stuff seriously. I'm like, what you're saying can impact somebody's life. So this is not meant to be just taken lightly. This is not something to be played with. Like I have to actually, I'm like, oh, you have to actually do alchemy. Again, this is what attracted me to 93 because everything was done in a different way. As I'm explaining now, most people that do tarot spreads, they don't read the cards as a sequence. It's separated. Because you have to honor the elemental value. That's not easy to do, okay? You got a water card here, you got a air card here, you have a fire card here, you got another water card. You have to make some type of sense of what that means. For the average person who's not mathematical, who's not scientific, they don't want to go do that. Like, why the fuck do I want to go do that? That's just extra work. So of course they want to keep things separate because you don't have to do the alchemical work, but it's good for the mainstream. And that's what it's for. It's for the mainstream. If you consider yourself an occultist, if you consider yourself an alchemist, then you will understand the quality of being able to know the elemental fusion that's taking place between the cards. That gives the reading a whole nother world. That excites you. That gives everything a whole nother. It allows you to open up gateways that you were not able to open up, just keeping things simple, not acknowledging the elemental qualities between the cards. But again, the average tarot reader does not do this, right? So don't expect this to be done by the average tarot reader, right? I'm talking about extraordinaries. Basically, if you're not within 93, 93 is the only one that really preserved that. So let me just emphasize that. This was directly what Crowley did, right? So for people who are not students of 93, then this is not something that they will. So if you're not within the world of 93, most people are probably not doing this, right? So I'm pretty much really just speaking from the perspective of 93 because this was really the only place it was preserved, right? As I say, like, where else do you see people mixing up the elemental qualities and reading cards in a sequence? I'm not saying people don't do it, but it's not the norm, right? Which video did I explain 93? I have no idea. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. 93 is a greeting from fellow Thelemites. So whenever Crowley wrote to anybody who was a practitioner of Thelema, it would always start with 93, 93, 93. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. And will always end with love is a law, love under will, 93. That was based, so whenever it was a thelemic meeting of thelemic minds, whenever thelemic minds merge together, we basically always come together under the number 93. Now, if we ask, okay, well, what is the actual meaning of 93? Now we can get artistic with it. I can give my meaning of 93. But to say that's the end all be all, no, right? That's what makes it creative, right? I can give my definition, but my definition is not the definition. The definition can be different for everybody depending on how you mix up the alchemy. Meaning I can tell you how I came to my conclusion. You can tell me how you came to your conclusion. And then they both be right. And then we can see different perspectives. And that's what allows our minds to merge into one, where we become the all-seeing eye, being able to touch all worlds and dimensions and channel as we do now, right? This is our ability to touch all the dimensions, right? So that's why I do my best to speak on all of the dimensions, so we can talk about human nature, then we can go all the way into astrology and tarot. And then, talk about everyday normal stuff, shit, right? We have to go into all worlds, to the heights and the hells. So that's why we'll talk about the streets, but then we have to take it to the heights, then we're gonna take it back into the underworld. And I'm showing you the connection between these things and emphasizing the tarot for those who are students of the tarot. This is how you advance yourself. When you become an elemental master of the elements, or the suits of the tarot, right? The suits, like when we think about a suit, we think about something that a person wears, a suit. But there is the suits, the four suits, right? The suit of cups, the suit of wands, right? There's definitions within definitions. So even when we think about the suits, meaning this is a library of information, the suit of wands. That means it's various suits. There's various wands. There's various degrees. This is one whole suit. It is a collective. The collective is the 10 degrees, from the ace to the 10. Meaning it's a collective, meaning they all work together and influence each other. That means it's telling a story. They are all interconnected. So even though they stand on their own, they are all interconnected. The suits are trying to tell you a story. Do you understand the story of the suits? Do you understand the suit of wands? What is the message behind the suit of wands? Not just what a wand is. We know what a wand is, but what is the purpose? Why do they come in suits? Why is it not just one wand, right? Why is it a collection? Why is there a suit of wands? A suit of cups, a suit of swords, a suit of disc. Why it's not just one? This is what a disc is. Why do we have to go from the ace to the 10? Why do we have to go from the 1 to the 10? Why is it necessary that we move about this in degrees? Why is it necessary that I have to go through each degree to understand the overall message? So again, I'm just telling you what most people don't do. They just look at, see, when you look at things separate, you're not able to connect it, because your whole mind has been adjusted to separating everything. That's what the mainstream does. That's what we do when we go to school. Everything is separated. So we don't know how to connect things. We lose that ability because the whole thing has been training you to disconnect everything. You're not trained to find a connection between two things that are not related, and then tie a knot. You're not taught how to tie knots between things that are unrelated and find the parallels between the two. But we know that's the law of correspondence. That's a universal law. So we have what the world teaches us, then we have what the universal law teaches us. The law of correspondence, as above, so below. All the universal laws do is preserve your divine mind. That's all it does. It just reminds you of how to think about things. That's why everything that we quote within the Word of 93 can be taken directly to the universal laws. We can take these things into the universal laws because they were channels. This was not somebody with a gigantic ego just trying to inflate their ego. This is somebody who moved that shit out the way and just allowed channels to come through. That's why there's different classes of writings. Some classes are purely channels, then some classes are just things to be studied, things to ponder on. But when you're dealing with a certain class, this is all channels. Class A. Class A writings are all channels from certain deities. So these are not the thoughts of a man, these are channels. I mean, I'm moving my ego out the way and I am receiving. This is purely received. Then there's writings where now I'm projecting from my own intelligence. But that's classified as different than that channel. And they are to be studied differently. For those who are into the literature, these things are to be studied differently. You can't put these on the same wavelength. That's why they're separated and divided into classes or degrees. Meaning you have to be in a certain understanding to know how to approach each of these writings. Once you know where they came from, meaning like if you just read, for example, the Book of the Law. The Book of the Law was a channel. That was a class A writing. These were not the thoughts of a man. These were channels. That's why chapter 1 is Nued, chapter 2 is Hadid, and chapter 3 is Rahakiwid. These were received words. These were words that were received. These were not the thoughts. This was not a projection. So the Book of the Law will be classified as a class A writing, which is material that was purely received from deities. As Alistair Crowley said, the Book of the Law was channeled from Awas. He was possessed by Awas, and Awas delivered the Book of the Law to him. So he takes no credit of writing the Book of the Law, just like he takes no credit in any of the Class A workings. Like this is not me. This is me being in a purely receptive state of mind, and I'm just the observer essentially. I'm just observing, writing down what I'm observing. This is not my thoughts. So when you know how to approach each of the degrees, then you know what you're reading and you don't get it mixed with the other stuff, which is what most people do. They try to dig into the literature and they just start anywhere. They have no idea what class it is, how you should be approaching it. So then it's like if you go read this and read this and read this, you're just randomly reading things like it's really not going to make any sense. But that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to confuse the fool. You cannot approach these things as a fool. As you see, everything is very organized. So if you are not within the realm of organization, then it's not you. If you try to approach it just trying to randomly pull things off the shelf, there is no telling where you may end up. But if you approach it from the proper degree and you know how to approach it and you understand what was written and why it was written and what context it was written in, so you know exactly how to approach it, so you don't get it confused with everything else. The same thing with the tarot, it's the same thing with numerology. You know how to differentiate the one between the two. You don't get the 8 confused with the 9. You know clearly when the 9 is in front of you. You know clearly when the 8 is in front of you. Now, taking this back to the street level of things, because we're talking about Qliphothic matters. Because the Qliphoth represents the opposite of everything that I'm saying here. That's an advanced degree. That's why the Qliphoth, you can say, is the final degree. Because you're going to reverse everything that you just learned. All the work that you just put in has to now be reversed. Excuse me, because now you are dealing with the law of reversal, which was also introduced by Alistair Crowley, the law of reversal. Things have to be done in reverse. That's why you have certain artists that begin to, even now in the drill, in UK drill, A lot of that is reversed samples. The samples are reversed. So this is happening right now. I don't even have to use an ancient example. Right now in today's music, their samples are being reversed, and then they put the drums on top of it, but the sample is reversed. It's like anime samples. They do it all the time in UK drill. So the law of reversal is being played out, and we can go all the way back. You can say to the Beatles, where the artists are reversing the music and putting hidden messages in the music. All that comes from Crowley, right? Because they were students of Crowley. A lot of artists, even to this day, are students of Crowley. They're just not going to tell you that. But there's no way for you not to be a student of another artist. Aleister Crowley was simply an artist. Then you can say he was a poet, and eventually he became the prophet of 93. These are just levels that you advance in. So it's not that he's the only one that can do it. These are levels of alchemy that we all have the ability to reach. He just became the example, like Jesus is the example for Christians. Everybody wants to be like Jesus because he is the example. He's the one that lived and breathed it and who brought the message. Same thing with other Christ, right? He's one of the Christ. You have other people that feel they basically put another name in that category, but they're like, that was a living example of what we all should strive to be. Whoever that person may be, whatever that name may be. And then people build religions behind their teachings. So anybody who left a body of teachings, essentially you can develop a religion around that. So because Aleister Crowley left a whole body of work and was able to organize it, of course, it can be categorized as a religion. However, it is simply the way of an artist because that's all he's really trying to explain. As an artist, here are the degrees that you will go through. Here's how to deal with it. I'm dealing with it. I was living and breathing, so I'm not a god, I'm not a folk magical thing. I'm a real man going through real shit like you're going through real shit. I'm just documenting a journey because this is the same journey that you will one day take if you are really an artist. The world is going to hate you because you're reminding the world of what it really is, which is that universal truth. They're not going to like that you're reminding people what actually is instead of the illusions that they're trying to paint. So that's not going to always be embraced. So it's not because he was necessarily just doing some unthinkable acts that just made him so evil and wicked and hated. We see multiple people go through that same energy. They go through that same hatred. Michael Jackson went through the same hatred, right? They were accusing him of doing all type of stuff. So nobody is exempt of basically criticism from the world. It doesn't mean that the world is correct, but everybody will get that criticism. They will always find a reason to disregard what you're actually doing and then paint a different narrative. And that's essentially their job. They are literally paid to do that. So it's not really about why they do it. It's because they are paid to. That's how they feed their family. So if you have to lie to feed your family and their mind and their heart and their value system, that's okay to do, and that's what they're going to do. And that's why it's permissible in the world of capitalism, in the world of I got to feed my family, in the world of survival, that's permissible. So it's going to always be that person that's willing to do essentially what you're not willing to do. So it don't matter how holy your value system is, there's always going to be a person that's willing to do what you're not going to do because their value system is a little different. And that just represents the various degrees of the occult. Why it's the book of the law says you're not supposed to take one thing over another thing. You're not supposed to value this over this. Oh, I prefer that. Fuck that. Because the moment you start doing that, now you're separating yourself from everything else. And when you separate yourself from everything else, you're doing the same thing that the tarot readers do, and they don't connect the cards. And when you separate things and you try to make sense of a lot of things, but you look at it as separate matters. For example, we can say that the the world has a lot of problems, right? this country is dealing with this problem, that country is dealing with that problem, they're dealing with all types of problems. It's really just one problem. It's one problem that causes every other problem. And that one problem will never be dealt with because they're going to always deflect and act like it's something else. But that one problem is what feeds their family, so they can't truly stop it. Why would you need a politician when everybody's holy and righteous and not fucking everybody over? Why the fuck do you need politicians? People create their own laws. Why do you need people that represent the people when the people represent themselves? That whole system makes no sense in a world of reality where everybody simply acknowledges what is true and just. But because we choose to live in the American dream where things are opposite of what they should be, and that's the law of reversal. So even in the word American dream, dreams are supposed to be not real, supposed to be the reverse of reality. So even in that word, the American dream, that's really talking about the law of reversal. This is where the law of reversal happens. This is the core element of the Western mind. The Western mind is the law of reversal. That's why it's a bunch of ass backwards people, as we see, right? Because there's various degrees of ass backwardness. Meaning you can be an ass backward fool or an ass backwards wizard. How do we know? This is what the artist is. They're kind of ass backwards, are they not? They're kind of off-centered, are they not? The people we love to listen to, the best comedians, artists, are kind of off a little bit. They're off-centered a little bit, but that's what makes them able to do what they're able to do because of that law of reversal. So our whole culture revolves around the law of reversal. That's why I constantly say Aleister Crowley just revealed things that everyone else just simply always wanted to stay away from. So that includes all of the new thought writers, all of the new age writers, everybody who just wanted to focus on love and light, everybody who just wanted to focus on Christianity, everybody who just wanted to focus on this lighthearted shit, and they just didn't want to bring that real and that rugged and that absolute truth. They wanted to paint a bunch of illusions and what they want the world to be or what they think the world should be. They essentially gave you their value system, and people became just living duplicates of those ideas, because that was the whole point. So of course they're gonna call Aleister Crowley wicked because he just gave you the goddamn truth. It wasn't truth according to his perspective. That's what they want you to believe, but I just explained. If you want his perspective, there's works for his perspective, if that's what you want. But if you don't want his perspective, if you want pure channels, you got that too. So you don't really have to care about the man at all. You can just read the channels and not give a fuck about the personal shit at all, and still be enlightened. You're like, okay, this was actually a channel. But again, these things they're not going to ever be explained from people from the outside. This is why I have to explain this shit. Because I'm the only one who is going to explain it. Who the fuck else is going to explain this shit? Everybody else just rather leave it confused. That's why you see who's really claiming 93 like that. And the mainstream and people that we know about, right? You don't really, people are not embracing. They do secretly, just not openly. Why? Because they already have certain ties to certain people, certain things, and it's just things that they can't do because of the contracts, the seventh house. They're already under contract, so they just can't come out with a whole new perspective and a whole nother mindset and then just change the music in a whole direction of their message. When you have all these people who are invested in them just being destructive. We are investing in you to be destructive. We're not investing in you to change your whole perspective and embrace the law of reverse and start talking about the occult and your music and all that. We're not paying you to do that. So even if they're into it, that's not what they're going to be talking about. And they do talk about it. They got to be super slick about it. That's why they're so good with their metaphors. They're so good with their metaphors because that's really the only way for them to speak some real shit. They can only speak it in metaphors. They can't just speak about it directly because of the position that they're in. So they gotta speak in metaphors. And I guess from that perspective, you can't really blame them. I'm like, okay, well, if that's a decision you make and you still choose to speak truth just in metaphorical form, I'm not really mad at that. I'm not really going to put that person down. I'm like, all right, because you can just not be speaking the truth at all, but you still choose to do it in metaphorical form. That means you just got to be advanced to get what they're saying. That's basically the perfect example of that is like a Jay-Z. You got to be pretty advanced to really understand what he's talking about. And even if you're smart and witty, there's still things that go over your head because you really don't get it. Because that mentality was never developed within your actual mentality. Meaning you didn't develop the mentality of an alchemist to understand the words of an alchemist. So to you, again, it's just entertainment. For most people, it's just entertainment. It's just entertainment. But for fellow alchemists, you're listening to and you're observing how an alchemist puts together their alchemy, and it's very fascinating. Especially when you're into symbolism and you see their choice of symbolism, their choice of colors, what they choose to wear, how they choose to present their ideas. When you're really analyzing these things, especially the lyrics, when you're really taking apart the lyrics and really breaking down the metaphors, and okay, what are they really saying here? You're going through the alchemical process because you yourself are an alchemist. So you're essentially putting work out for you to essentially dismantle and take apart and essentially observe. That's what art is supposed to do. So you create art for people to take apart and reassemble and do all type of creative stuff that they do in their own mind, and then they give their own definition to it. So you're giving them essentially something to do that with, something to exercise their own alchemy, something to inspire them to engage in their own alchemy. So now they can engage in their own alchemy while they listen to your music or inspired by the videos that you put out. Whatever content that you choose to create and however you choose to inspire the people, now they can do what they do while you're in the background, or while they listen to your words, listen to your music, observe your art, your artistic creations, whatever it may be, right? So essentially your art becomes a part of their world, and they are willing to pay for it, going back to what we were saying in the beginning. When people choose to consistently spend with you because of the work that you put in and the art that you put out, when people choose to do that consistently, you can call yourself successful because you have successfully gave people a reason to consistently spend money with you, meaning you consistently put out a product that is value. People feel like, okay, this is worth the money that I pay for it on a consistent basis. You can call yourself successful when you're able to do that consistently. And again, is that easy to do? Absolutely not. As we see, most people are not in that position. Most people are not that organized. Most people can't say that they do this successfully. So again, everything that I'm speaking about, again, is not the norm. This is not the mainstream. This is not how most people think. This is not how most people believe. Everything is within the world of the abstract and possibilities, right? In the world of alchemy, where we can assemble our own reality in the worlds, when we engage in these energies and open up these gateways and become these things that we know already exist. Essentially, July 23rd, as we know, represents the rising of Sirius. That's why I wanted to come on here today. Because I actually wanted to come on yesterday, but I'm like, actually, no, let me just wait till the 23rd and actually make it, give it the energy of celebration for the rising of Sirius, right? Going back into the astronomy. So I feel that was more fitting. And we're also in the season of Leo now. we're officially in the season of Leo. So the season of Leo marks the rising of Sirius. So we are officially going into that energy where, most people, you could say, will embody the energy of, feeling themselves, and the ego is inflated, and, they're just going to be a lot more prideful. Most people will probably, exert the more negative qualities. But for the people that are more refined, they will be creative, because Leo is really about creativity. The base of it is about being creative. That's why Leo, the fifth house, is about entertainment. It's about theater. It's about you being able to channel these characters, you being able to channel these words that you listen to via the entertainment. So all this is in the realm of Leo. So essentially, all that I'm talking about in the creative plane is really the plane of the Leo. As we know, Leo represents the number one, the energy of the sun, right? So this is all going into those degrees. So how does all this relate to street dynamics and what we see occurring in the devil's pits, and why people are actually, why we embrace what we embrace, which essentially what we see is death. Why are we so quick to embrace death, and we love the energy of death? Why? What is it about that energy? Well, going back to the rising of Sirius, it goes back to the constellations and the certain vibes that they hold. For example, when we think about the constellation of Orion, you can say that energy is very Masonic. And we know Masonry has a very deep influence with the streets. When we think about hand signs and gang signs and all that, we see the Masonic influence, and even the laws and all that. There's a very large Masonic influence, right? Again, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, it's there when you know the science. So, okay, this has to come from here because you are familiar with it as well. That's essentially all we study for. We don't study to appear to be smart to other people. We study so that we can see exactly what we're looking at. We're not looking at we're not looking at something and don't know what we're looking at. You can look at something and know exactly what really is there, and not what appears to be there. That's why you study. You can see like, oh, that symbol is just a watered down image of this, because you know the original symbol. That's just a watered down eye of Ra, for example. That's just a watered down eye of Ra, because you know the eye of Ra, because you study it, and you are also practicing, right? So you're not somebody who just study and don't get their hands dirty. You want to be caught red-handed, and this goes into the elements of the streets are spirits. The streets are not human beings. The streets know all. The streets know all. It's a collective. The streets is not the people that you see. The streets are not the people that you see. The people that you see are not the one making the calls, making the plays, setting shit up. They may be on a level that you can see, but the streets operate on a level you can't see. It's intangible. The real streets is intangible. It's generated from the Qliphoth. It comes from the necessary evil. It represents the necessary evil. The streets represent the necessary evil. People have to be killed. The streets must eat. And you just make sure that you are not the victim, because there will always be victims. Sorry to tell you, this will never stop. We will never not embrace death. This is just the energy that's here. The spirits crave blood. This has always been the case in America. We know about the history of the Aztecs, human sacrifice. That's our history. We've been killing shit. We've been slaying shit. That is what we live for. It is reflected in our history. We can deny it or accept it. That is a personal decision. Blood is the currency of the streets. It is not new, and it ain't going anywhere. It will always be that. So the only thing you can do, because we're not going to change it. Gangs are always going to be here. They ain't going nowhere. Why? Because it's a necessary evil. It is a necessary. So not to say evil. That's why it can't be stopped. Why can't the cops stop crime? Because the cops are criminals themselves. Not all, but they are involved in the criminal underworld themselves. It would not work without them. In reality, there will be no underworld without the enforcers that we call cops, because they are enforcing the law. So if they choose to not enforce the law, then you get the pass. They enforce the law at their discretion. That's why they're such power pieces. They enforce the law at their discretion. So if they owe you a favor, do you know what you can get away with? Now you say, how could you owe the cops a favor? Again, these are street politics, street laws. They are involved. There's no way they are not involved. They just know the play. Like, we understand people gotta die. Drugs gotta be sold. Why? Because you got demons in these streets. And if you don't satisfy these savages, they're really gonna fuck shit up. If we think shit is bad, now imagine if there was no drugs. See, we have to understand the reality. Imagine if there was no drugs. We see drugs have bad effects on people, but imagine if there was no drugs and how savage they would be, and you would have to kill these motherfuckers. They would be living animals, savages for real. They will have to be killed. Drugs is what keeps them alive, not just mentally, but also physically, because they're just too, you can say, wild in the head. They come from the Qliphoth after all. Some of us come from the Qliphoth, so we understand that. So somebody who don't come from that will never understand that. When you grew up amongst this, you understand it because you are it. You grew up amongst it. There's no way you're not it. You were embraced. It was here before you was born. You just popped up in this bitch. So you didn't create the law, but you understand it because you was amongst it and you are it. You just understand that it must be transmuted. You don't change from it. You just change its form. You just change its reflection in its direction. But you're still that. You can say we all demons. We all jinn. You just choose to be righteous. That's why I always say that. Well, I'm saying I'm jinn, I'm demon, I'm devil. But you see, I choose to be righteous. That don't make me not devil. That don't make me not jinn. That don't make me not demon. I just choose to tame my wild inhibitions, right? Because I'll be out here wilding too. Well, because I had a little Islamic influence, I realized it's not the best route for me to take. Can't speak on nobody else's direction. I'm like, okay, it's for me to understand more than the average. So I knew that young. It's like I always knew I was in a dream, and one day I would wake up, and eventually that day came, and shit got real different real quickly. I'm like, I knew it. Like, I knew this is, you know, when people are just painting pictures, people are just telling you to smile just for the picture. Your life can be a living hell, but for this picture, you about to smile. For this picture, this is about to be a good moment that we reflect on. For this picture, your mood at the current moment don't matter. See, when you young, you don't really understand that, right? When you young, you don't really understand it. Like, no, I feel the way I feel, fuck everything else. But when you older, you realize that, yeah, these are moments that we will reflect on, and my personal matters are irrelevant. These are hieroglyphs. These are hieroglyphs as a reminder of who and what you are. So, saying all that to say, the streets will be the streets, and the streets are the spirits. They are given a direction. They are the ones who are The gatekeepers. The streets are ran by gatekeepers. The streets are not individuals that we just see. It's who you don't see. It's the one who has the ability to unleash some real havoc in the world, but choose not to. Real havoc can be unleashed on this world, but somehow it's not. Why? Because there's certain people in charge of that. It's not the people that's just killing randomly and who's just doing stupid shit. These are not the people who we consider the streets. Meaning they didn't create the laws that they follow. That's what I'm saying. They didn't create the laws that they follow. They just follow the laws, but they don't have an understanding of the street laws. The street laws is not something that you really know and understand until later. Like when you're young, you just do it because you're just told to do it. It's not until you get a little older that you know this is why you don't do it. This is what comes with that. This is how you go deeper. This is how you know this is not something that you just do while you're young and when you get older you put it behind you. No, this is something that you are for life. And you make the best of it. You transmute darkness into light, which is Luciferian, which is satanic. That's all the fucking devil is. It's some dark ass shit that's transmuted into the light bearer. It's transmitted into the light of Venus. Venus is Lucifer in Latin. So essentially, the transmutation process is taking place in Venus and the plane of Lucifer. So if the plane of Lucifer is the plane of Venus, who is the morning star as well as the evening star, this is what Venus is. That's why people worshipped the planet Venus. There's history of worshipers of the planet Venus. Venus ain't just no planet up there. That's the brightest planet. Venus is the planet that we can actually visibly see. The brightness of Venus is undeniable. But this is an old way. This is not something that most people acknowledge or will ever understand. Because it's not meant for them to understand. Well, Venus, what's so special about Venus? So what? This goes back to the Empress, because we know Venus takes us to the Empress, and the Empress takes us to Daleth. Daleth takes us to the door. Did I not say gatekeepers? The gatekeepers are the streets. Did I not say that? Now do we understand the door? Now do we understand Daleth? Oh, well, the streets. Oh, the streets are satanic. Oh, that's Lucifer. That's the devil's plane. That's devil this. Okay, no, that's Lucifer. Well, Lucifer is Venus. Venus is Empress. Daleth is the door. Who controls the door? It's not the ones you see, it's the ones you don't see. Because they're not meant to be seen. They're not supposed to be seen. You're not supposed to know who they are. That's how it works. You're not supposed to know their whereabouts. Why would you know? Daleth is the door. The streets is the door. So the goal is to be the gatekeeper of the door. What is the door? The door to the Qliphoth. What is the door to the Qliphoth? The door to the necessary evil. Can you control necessary evil? That's what the streets is. That's why people are in position of the streets. They are controlling necessary evil. Some people just need to be killed. Some people just need to be slain or put down or tamed in other ways, such as drugs and other ways, right? There's always somebody in position to tame the savages, the titans. Somebody must tame these titans or they're going to wreak hell. They're saving lives every single day and we don't even know it. The gatekeeper is saving lives every day and we don't even know it. Because we look at these people as just disgusting human beings. And they can be if they don't follow the law. But for the ones who do, it's actually some good that comes from necessary evil. People are able to maintain their lives. There's always some slippages, but they are in control of necessary evil. So essentially, you can say murderers, drug fiends, all these people, the street walkers, the bums, all these fucking street beings, somebody's in control of them because they are damn sure not in control of themselves. So who the fuck is in control? Some puppet master shit going on. But they don't know it. It's not for them to know. The real game is not for them to know. The real game is not known. It's only known by a certain few. I'm giving you glimpses. It's puppet master activity. It's puppet master activity. If you understand what that is. So if you know, then you approach as if you know, which is a state of non-fear. Because if you know this is a spiritual game, and you know that, okay, I have to make certain deals with certain spirit if I want certain passages to certain doors, then you ain't got nothing to worry about. If you have passage to certain doors, what is there to fear? If you are really a king or a queen of your city, can't you go anywhere the fuck you want to go? Is there ever a problem when you touch down on the block? Whichever block it may be. Is there ever a problem? Because if it's not, there's a reason for that. Because some people touch down on a block and it's a problem. Somebody wants to do something to them. They gotta do all this extra shit. But for some reason, for when you touch down, you ain't gotta worry about all this extracurricular activity. You can be on the most dangerous block in America. Do you gotta worry about somebody that's running up and taking your life just because it's the most dangerous block in America? It's the most dangerous street, the most dangerous city. That means you gotta walk around in fear of your life. Well, as somebody who grew up in these things, as we know, Detroit, Michigan, the city has always been dangerous, just like Chicago, just like various other cities in the Midwest. Very dangerous cities. But when you grow up amongst the danger, does it really seem dangerous to you when you are danger itself? Meaning you are the energy because you were born there. Everybody else, oh, this is dangerous. You are danger. You was born in danger. Meaning you was meant to be some dangerous shit. Because you was born at that time. Why were you born at the time in the location you was born in as a dangerous ass place? Why were you born amongst danger and expected to survive? You were already born into an unfortunate situation that some people consider cursed. How the fuck are you cursed? The fuck did you do? Or are you the necessary evil of the world? It's just things to ponder on. Because if you are the necessary evil, now you understand why people just don't fuck with you, and there's never a reason why. And why you have to engage in certain activities that other people simply will never understand, and it's not for them to understand. Again, puppet master shit. Dark magic, sorcery, necromantic activity. Why were you chosen to engage in such devilish shit? Why are you drawn to? Why do you have shards of the soul edge in you? How the fuck did those get there? How did that happen? Because when you are of it, when you're in the inside, you know that There's always a reason why things happen. Do things happen randomly on the spot in the moment? Yes, but there's always a reason for why that happened when that happened. The reason may not be known, but it can always be figured out if you do the calculations, if you do the mathematics. It may not be known, but it can be figured out. And the streets stay figuring shit out. Do they not? They stay figuring shit out, doing the numbers, adding shit up. They stay doing that. That's why they can figure out what happened, when it happened, who did it. How they able to figure this shit out? They stay adding shit up, don't they? They stay in that mathematics. They stay on devil's time. And the devil know that mathematics, don't the devil not? When you look at the true science of witchcraft and when you actually summon in devil shit and you see how accurate these numbers are, and when certain shit happened, when it happened, you're like, yo, that was precisely accurate. How the fuck did that happen? That was way too accurate. That happened at the precise moment it was supposed to happen. That was divine intervention type shit. When you witness it, you like, yo, that was divine intervention, but that don't seem like it was on a divine level, unless you acknowledge that the devil is divine. That's a personal decision, right? So some type of intervention, divine or demonic, is occurring. So people on demon time, that means you got demonic intervention. There's demonic movement going on in your life if you on demon time, right? Demon time just means I'm in the spirit world doing some other shit. And what I'm doing here, it just feeds what I do there. So if I choose to slay, it's to feed what I'm doing there. I need energy to do what I'm doing there. Because I'm doing certain dark activity that the average person probably would never understand. But there was always, as we know, darker religions, darker ways of life that played with bones, right? Palo Mayombe being one of those darker worlds where they play with bones. They do that bone magic. All right, give me 1 second. I got a package. Give me 1 second. Let me go grab that. 1 second. Let me go grab that. I'll be right back. Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on. All right. Sorry about that. I'll go grab the package. So I try to get everything on my days off. So it's always things flowing in and out. Getting back to it. Wait, let me check. Hold on. Let me check the battery. Hold on. All right, we good. Okay. So moving along, because we talking about the actual factual of things, and not what they appear to be, what they actually are, right? It's never what it appears to be because again, it's puppet master, and puppet master games are being played. Again, I was talking about the bone magic. There's certain darker energies, certain darker religions. They work with the bones, right? As we know it as the talking skulls, right? Or they also classify it as the crystal skulls. Crystal skulls, talking skulls, all that comes from bone magic. So essentially, you can say that the darkest of the dark, or the most darkest magic, requires bones, meaning the most valuable thing in magic is bones. That's the most valuable currency in magic. So when we think about, okay, like spirits, like what can you really give spirits? What can spirits do with money? What can they do with this? What can they do with that? Well, the answer is fucking bones. That's what the fucking answer is. Bones. What do spirits want? What do they desire? Bones. Is it easy to get bones? It depends on if you know what you know. Most people are not walking up to carcasses and seeing dead shit. I mean, you may see a dead bird, a dead cat here and there, maybe. Most people ain't seeing dead human beings and the whole body rots and see a bunch of bones just laying around. Certain people do see that, but in everyday life, they don't allow you to see bones. Most people are not seeing bones. You're not allowed to see bones. People are already buried in the ground before you see bones. They're already burned. Most people, you're not seeing bones for a reason. There's a reason you don't see bones. There's a magical quality about bones. You're not allowed to see it. Not really allowed to see it. That's why they study bones, right? If they just find a skull in the ground right now, they're going to study that skull. That skull is valuable. They want to know where that skull came from. That may be an ancient skull from thousands of years ago. They're going to want to study that skull. So anybody who just stumbles upon a skull, that's valuable. But again, that's valuable for them. For them, they're just looking at money. They're just looking at study. But for the magical practitioner, now they're looking at magic like, yo, I just stumbled onto some gold. That's the equivalent of gold. But now you can create a talking skull. See, anyway, I don't know if I should even be talking about that type of shit. However, we be seeing these things in movies. We be seeing these things in cartoons. I'm just revealing these things that they're all based in reality. There are certain recipes that can be put together to create certain spiritual phenomenon that you're not supposed to see or engage in. They call it some devil shit. You would think the devil is involved. There's certain recipes you can put together like, yo, I know the devil's involved in this shit. This is some extraordinary activity. Certain recipes. Some people know these recipes that have been passed down from generation to generation. That's why they preserve it. They're preserved in certain religions. Some people have certain codes that revolve around bone activity because that is a true currency. Hence, going back to what I was saying about the devil's pits, why people are allowed to die. People are allowed to die because we are allowed to kill. It's not about what you do, it's how you do it. We are allowed to kill each other. There's a way to get away with murder. People are doing it every day. There's a method to killing, and you will not get caught. They know you did it, but you did it so slickly that you won't get caught. But they still know you did it, and they don't care that you did it, and they hope that you continue to do it because you're just making them money. You're giving them a reason to stay employed. Or, you know how many cold cases exist? They don't know who did it. They don't know who did it. That person is still amongst us free. Some people are hit men and hit women that do this for a living. That's just how they earn, that's how they take care of their family. They take people off this planet. They some real transporter type shit. See, there's really darker qualities in certain positions that people play that the average person they're not able to handle. That's why it's a necessary evil. Somebody has to have the stomach to handle these necessary evils. That's why pimps exist. That's why prostitutes exist. They are satisfying certain darker qualities of human nature that we may not want to accept, but somehow they're here, they're not going anywhere. Drug dealers, same thing. They're here, they're not going anywhere. Gang members, they're here, they're not going anywhere. All these corrupt cops, politicians, everybody within this street organization, they're here, they're not going anywhere. They're all in cahoots with each other. It is a underworld activity that you're not supposed to know about. You're not supposed to know about the connections. You're not supposed to know that they're one and the same, that they're all tied and connected. You're not supposed to know that. You're not supposed to know certain people have certain favors. So if they do make a mistake, they can get out of that mistake. Because they have done certain favors, they all know the same people. They are all in union. You have to be if you're on certain levels. There's no way for you not to be. Because if you're really trying to play the game, as I said, the book of the law, you can't prefer one over the other. Basically, you can't choose sides. People love being territorial. I'm either this or I'm that. You can't do that at higher levels. You can't choose sides. You're going to be engaging with both. If you really are a part of the underworld, you're going to be engaging with anybody from criminals to corrupt cops to corrupt politicians, and any organization, you're going to be engaged with corrupt people. You're like, yo, why the fuck are you here? But it ain't for you to know. They are playing a position on some puppet master shit. They're just playing a role that they themselves may not even know the purpose of. Most don't. The roles that they play, they themselves don't know the purpose of. They're not supposed to know. Puppet master shit. But I'm not necessarily talking about the Illuminati or no shit like that. Because we know about that already. Puppet master in the sense of a lot of people like to call this a white man's world, for example, right? A lot of people like to say this is a white man's world. But I will tell you that's actually the apparent truth. Meaning the true magicians look just like us. It's our own people. It's not the so-called mysterious white man with the racism and all that stuff, right? We think that's our greatest threat or enemy, racism, white supremacy, all these ideas, right? People have whole channels dedicated to that shit. But they don't have channels dedicated to that real shit. And they will never have channels dedicated to that real shit. Because when people say, oh, we are our own enemy, they talk about because we're killing each other. No. The real enemies are not the ones slaying each other. Again, it's the element that's not talked about. That's not the enemy. It's not the gangs killing each other that makes things so bad. That's not the reality whatsoever. It's the spiritual wars that occur. That's what cause what we see with our eyes. That is called caused due to spiritual warfare. And what we see on the streets is just a result of spiritual warfare. And sometimes it requires sacrifice. Some street warfare requires human sacrifice. You just want to make sure that you're not that sacrifice, but there will be one. As we see, as we see, people die every day. It just you die, but one day you may die. And the reason I say you may die depends on how you work your magic. You may die, or you may live, just in a different form. It's completely up to you. It depends on who's a slave to the demiurge and who's the real Gnostic. Because the real Gnostics live for this type of shit. Because you see, they were talking the same shit I'm talking. They was talking that way before Christianity. They was talking that talk before talk was talked. Right? They already knew. Some real hard ass shit. Gnosticism is real fucking hard, especially the worship of that serpent. Like, we ain't worshiping no Christ. We worshiping this snake. And then that got twisted into a hanging man on the cross. But what's about that snake though? On that cross. Some real hard shit to comprehend when we see how demonic the snake, not the snake, the serpent has become. We instantly think about some demonic shit. You see serpents. Maybe it's their connection between both worlds. They can be demonic because they also are symbols of wisdom. They can be demonic and divine. Imagine that. Why do you think we embrace them so much? They can be divine or demonic. They are the perfect symbol of what man and woman is. You make the choice. Because maybe you're both. Maybe it's not even a choice to be made. Maybe you're supposed to operate between both worlds, which is harder than being divine or demonic, meaning your path is harder than what you think it is. It's easy just to be divine or demonic. Okay, I'm gonna just be a good person or I'm gonna be a bad person. That's a pretty easy decision to make. It's hard to say I gotta be good sometimes and bad other times. Sometimes I gotta be bad, sometimes I gotta be good. That's a harder decision to make. Because now you gotta live between worlds. Now you're walking the walk of the magician. Now you're path working. Now you're taking those in between cuts, those hidden routes, and you find yourself in some very dark places. Everything that you wish didn't exist, there's a reason why it exists. It's a reason why people get kidnapped and the most vile, disgusting things happen to human beings. There's always a reason for this. People getting their heads cut off and massacred and all types of just craziness. You're like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Are we really just animal-like? Or is there truly a cause that's beyond the physical plane that just require a group of people to be just massacred? What type of energy will require sacrifice? Well, in the realm of the American dream, that's every day. If we add up the people that shot and killed every day, you look at, oh fuck. Look at the daily level of death that's required for us to live. Look at the amount of people that have to get killed in order for us to live, because that's why they're dying. It's a necessary sacrifice. Which is why death wasn't always looked at as something bad. It was honored. And like, okay, you were actually a sacrifice for the gods. That's honorable. That wasn't frowned upon. See, that's the only difference between then and now. We're just so mad and disgusted. Oh, well, are people dying? But before it's like, damn, salute. That's the only difference. The only difference is we looked at it differently. We wasn't fucking disgusted and so twisted about the shit. Because the people that really think like that are considered the streets. You understand why it happens and how to think about it. Like, okay, this is some human sacrifice shit going on. It ain't for me to feel sad and fucked up. All my people don't know what's going on. No, my people are doing devil deeds. So some devil shit is gonna happen to them. That's all it is. You see some wild shit happening because these are some wild motherfuckers. These is Titan level motherfuckers. And sometimes some real balance has to occur. If you get out of line, if you get out of pocket. This is what Exodia is for anybody who's watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Exodia, you had to summon. You needed 5 cards to summon this monster. You needed to assemble him to summon him. You needed to have all 5 pieces in your hand, but you automatically won. But you know how hard it was to assemble all 5 pieces and still defend yourself from attacks. So you wasn't just drawing cards, just waiting to assemble it. You still have to defend yourself. You still have to guard yourself because there's somebody coming after you. So while you're assembling, you have to engage in warfare. So it's strategic. But Exodia was forbidden. He's locked up in chains. If you know the story, it's a forbidden energy. It's like a Titan level energy. It can only be summoned piece by piece. Otherwise, it's forbidden to play the card. You cannot summon, basically, it has to be summoned under certain circumstances. The only way this monster can be summoned, it has to be special circumstances at play. This is what life is truly about. And we're in here because I only have like 10% battery. So this will be the last point. Those special requirements. If you understand this, then you will understand everything about the devil, Venus, Lucifer. It's all about those special ingredients that create special circumstances and special things occur. Now, Lucifer becomes the torchbearer. How does the devil become the torchbearer? Meaning now the devil has become the symbol of wisdom. Why is the devil the symbol of wisdom in today's times? That's why people become satanic or Luciferian and all that. That's where wisdom is preserved. Wisdom is preserved in the devil's realm, not God's world. We see how corrupt God's people. God's people are corrupt. Not saying all of them, but a lot of them are, right? But can you really be corrupt and you're already of the devil? How does somebody who's cursed apparently be corrupt? It will be natural for you to actually just embrace what you are. Like, well, if I'm going to hell anyway, as an example, because that's what they say, you're already doomed to hell unless you get baptized. You gotta fucking cleanse yourself of some shit that you know nothing about because you're just fucking cursed. So you can be a good person, but if you don't get baptized, you still fucked. So it's not even based on deeds. It's really based on dedication and commitment. You gotta be saved, right? If you're not saved, you fucked. If you're not saved, you fucked, right? So, but if you are the serpent seed that they think you are anyway, don't they expect you to do dumbass shit? They don't expect you to figure the game out. They expect you to be a victim of the game. They don't expect you to become the puppet master. That's some unexpected shit. You were supposed to be the puppeteer. Well, no, you were not supposed to be the puppeteer. You were supposed to be the puppet. You wasn't supposed to be the puppeteer. How does the puppet become the puppeteer? It's like you're giving life to an inanimate object. To them, we are inanimate objects. Puppets without souls. You have no soul, so how can I corrupt you? You have no soul. I can be as vile as I want to you because you have no soul. This is how they think. They think like this already. This is how you can create systems of oppressing people and all that. Treat people any kind of way. You cursed anywhere. You deserve the least. This is their belief system. You're cursed anyway. Why should I give you any goddamn thing? You're already doomed to hell. And the only way I'm going to give you anything, you have to cross over to my world. It's the only way you're going to get anything. Why people become corporate? This is the play they set up. You got to become corporate. If you want a piece of the pie, you got to embrace my world, my perspective, my way of life, which is about feeding vice to the people. How can we feed this vice to the people? I mean, you got to be the legal drug dealer. You got to be the legal pimp. You see what they do? You got to be the legal drug dealer, the legal pimp. Everything that you did illegal, now there's a legal route. You have a license to do it now. Now you have a license to be the legal pimp. You have a license to be the legal drug dealer. That's all it means to be corrupt. You just have a license to engage in illegal activity. You got a license to do it when you're the undercover cop. You have a license to engage in illegal activity. As long as you have a license, it's technically not illegal for you to engage in illegal activity. Imagine that. So when they say you need to be stamped in the streets, that's just your license. That's your degree. What's your degree in the streets? That's your license. That lets you know which worlds and which portals you have access to. If you consider yourself the necessary evil and what you should be doing, what you came here to do, and how to fulfill your purpose, if that's what you consider yourself to be. The serpent's seed. Worship of the serpent. Somehow this has been going on since the fucking beginning, apparently. Since Adam and Eve, there's been some fucking serpent worship. What the fuck is going on with this serpent? Since the beginning, though? What the fuck is up with this serpent since the beginning, though? This motherfucker's been around since the beginning, though? And so this is the motherfucker that started this shit. Okay. So if it wasn't for this serpent, then we would still be in the Garden of Eden right now? This is how they set the play up. So if it wasn't for this talking fucking serpent, we would be in paradise right now. But because of this talking fucking serpent, we're going through hell. We're not in heaven right now. We're not in the Garden of Eden right now. We got to go through hell. We got to slave. We got to labor. We got to be tired. We got to go through pain and aches. We got to get old and die because of this fucking talking serpent. Oh, wouldn't you have a hatred in your heart for the seeds of the serpent? Wouldn't you have a hatred in your heart if that's how you feel? Like, this is the mother. Your father is a reason, or your mother, or both. The serpent is androgynous. It's because of you motherfuckers that I'm not still holding this whip. But I am holding a whip. I just have more finesse now. I call it a business. I call it a corporation. I call them employees. But I try to get the most work out of them that is possible. So I got the whip. It's just mental now. It's a mental game. It's chess. It's puppet master shit. You don't see this shit at your job every day? You don't see that puppet master shit? You don't see they look at you as puppets, right? Replaceable? Who cares? It's not until you become the puppet master, like, oh, you're real now. Now they look at you different. You gotta level up in your career. You gotta do all this extracurricular shit. But there's always circles and loops around the obvious.